Okay, today we are going to unlock a skill that is honestly essential pretty much everywhere, from the classroom all the way to the boardroom. We're talking about how to turn those complex charts and graphs into clear, compelling words. Let's dive right in.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're just staring at this tangle of lines or a bunch of bars, and you know there's a story hiding in there somewhere. But finding the actual words to describe it feels kind of impossible. You just freeze up.
But here's the good news. It's not some kind of magic. It is a skill. And, like any skill, it can be learned. There's actually a pretty straightforward blueprint that can take you from just staring blankly at a screen to confidently telling the exact story that the data wants to tell. It's a total game changer.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to learn how to actually read the story in the data. Then, we'll build up your vocabulary toolkit. After that, I'll walk you through a simple 4-part blueprint. And finally, we'll cover some common mistakes and talk about why this skill really matters. Sound good?
All right, first up, and listen, this is probably the most critical step of all. You have to read the story first. Before you even think about writing a single word, you've got to put on your detective hat. You have to really, truly understand what you're looking at.
So, what questions should our little data detective be asking? Well, you start with the absolute basics, right? Like, what is this thing even showing me? Then you kind of zoom out a bit. What's the big picture here? Is the trend generally going up, down, or is it just staying flat? Then you zoom back in. Okay, are there any dramatic moments? Any huge peaks or sudden drops? And what about comparisons? Are we comparing different groups here? And finally, keep an eye out for anything weird. Any outliers that just don't seem to fit the pattern. Answering these questions first, that's your foundation.
Okay, so once you've got a handle on the story, now you need the right words to actually tell it. And that brings us to our next section, your vocabulary toolkit.
Just look at how much power the right verb has. Instead of just saying something went up, you can say it surged, which sounds fast, right? Or it soared, which sounds like it went really high. Instead of went down, try using words like declined or dropped. And what if nothing changes? Well, phrases like remained steady or leveled off just sound so much more professional. This isn't just a boring list of words, you guys. This is your arsenal for being precise and sounding like you know what you're talking about. All right, so you get the story, you've got the words, but how do you actually put it all together? Well, that's where this super simple structure comes in, the 4-part blueprint. Trust me, this makes the whole process so much more manageable. The system is honestly beautifully simple. It's just 4 steps. We're going to start with an introduction, then give a general overview, then we'll dive into the specific details. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a solid conclusion. So let's break down exactly what each of those looks like. So, step 1, the introduction. This is just one clear sentence that states the facts. Seriously, no fluff. Just tell everyone what the visual is and what it's showing. For instance, the line graph illustrates the monthly sales of 3 different products between January and December. Boom, done. Now everyone's on the same page. Next up, step 2 is the overview. The best way to think about this is like the main headline of a news story. You're just describing the biggest, most general trend, but, and this is key, you're not getting bogged down in specific numbers just yet. Something simple like, overall, sales increased steadily throughout the year, with some minor fluctuations in the summer. See, that totally sets the stage for the details that are about to come.
Okay, now for step 3, the specific details. This is where you bring the proof. You provide the evidence. You bring in those key numbers, the start points, the end points. So you'd say something like, product A increased from 1,500 units in January to 2,500 units in December. And then, this is what really makes it powerful, you add a comparison. In contrast, product B remains stable. That contrast is where the story really comes to life.
And finally, we've got step 4, the conclusion. Think of this as your mic drop. It's your final takeaway. What is the one single, most important point you want people to remember? Something like, in summary, product A showed the strongest growth while product B remained consistent. It's the very last thing your audience is going to hear or read. So you want to make it a super clear and memorable summary of the main event.
So if you follow that 4-part blueprint, you are going to be well on your way. But to really master this thing, you also need to know what not to do. So let's take a look at some of the most common mistakes people make.
Okay, this first one is huge. You have got to avoid subjective or, overly emotional language. Saying, sales skyrocketed might sound exciting, but it's not actually an objective description, is it? The key here is to just stick to the facts. So the correct way to say it is, sales increased by 20% from March to April.
You want to be a reporter here, not a cheerleader.
And real quick, here are a few other traps you'll want to sidestep. First, don't just list a bunch of numbers without any context. You got to explain the trend. Second, always look for comparisons between things. That's where the real insights are hiding. Also, please try not to use the word increase 10 times in a row. Mix up your vocabulary. And for goodness sake, don't forget that powerful summary at the very end.
So you might be thinking, why did we just spend all this time learning how to describe a chart? Well, it's because this skill is about so much more than just a writing assignment. Let's talk about why this actually matters in the real world.
Honestly, mastering this is like a total workout for your communication muscles, for real. It sharpens your critical thinking because you're literally hunting for patterns and relationships. It boosts your writing accuracy, which makes you sound more precise and coherent. It automatically expands your vocabulary with all those strong professional terms we talked about. And, get this, it even improves your general reading comprehension because you're learning how to interpret visual information, which is everywhere.
Look, every single chart, every graph, every table, it has a story locked inside it, just waiting for someone to tell it. The only question left is, are you ready to be the one to tell that story?